born and raised right here in Kannapolis, North Carolina. I was actually born in Mecklenburg County, but we won't tell anyone.
We don't have to tell that part.
But yeah, I'm married. I have 5 beautiful children, 4 of which are here with me, and my wife, Kendra, who's here today with our oldest. And yeah, man, just 3 for Dale, Sun Drop, all that stuff, town pride. So
Come on, man.
yeah.
K-Town.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How long you been married?
We just celebrated, my wife and I, on September 6th, I believe it was, 10 years.
You got to know that.
Yeah, I can't believe.
You cannot hesitate on that. That's awesome, man. Hey, man, what's your favorite food?
All right. Well, yes. No, I'm just picking. I would say probably just, man, a good old marbleized ribeye.
Okay.
Black Angus cow. Out in California, they have different cattle out there.
Yeah.
So that was one of the first things I grabbed when I got back. So.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So here's a question I've asked some of the people I've been interviewing. If you could go to any place in the world, all expenses paid, but you could never go back there again, where would you go?
All right. Well, at first it was Israel, but I would hate to think that I couldn't go back there again. That wouldn't work out too well in the end, would it? Probably Australia. I know that's a long trip, but I feel like one and done, see it and experience it. And,
yeah, that's good.
And, all the big sharks and venomous things that
Yeah.
run around the outback, I guess, that would probably be it.
Somebody asked me that question because I've been asking that question so much, and Australia was my answer.
Was it really?
As well. Yeah, it's always been a bucket list item. I've never been there, but I feel like if I went once, I would be good. I wouldn't have to go back again, but I'd love to see it, love to go there and snorkel on the Great Barrier Reef or whatever. So it'd be
let's
fun.
get a bucket and a list and we'll go.
All right, let's do it, man. So Josh, you grew up around here. Your dad was in ministry, and you, like a lot of the people that are here, and like myself, you and your family suffered some church hurt. So can you talk about that a little bit and talk about how that affected you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we grew up, I have 2 siblings that are younger, and we grew up attending church here in Kannapolis, and my dad was from as early as I could remember, an accomplished Southern gospel pianist, and ended up being a choir director and a pastor later on. But we grew up in it, man. I mean, we were, I would even say, oversaturated at an early age, and we were there more than we weren't.
Right.
And so, but my dad was in ministry for many, many years, and the church hurt. It's always the elephant in the room, but it's a real thing, because hurt people, man.
Yeah.
And we're all broken, in need of a Savior. And there is no perfect person, so why would we expect a perfect church?
Right.
And so,
right.
But yeah, I did, man. I remember very vividly, about 12 years old, watching some of the youth and stuff that I was looking forward to be pulled into or to be a part of. Literally after 10 years of service, church was the last place I wanted to be. Probably at one of the most important ages of my life.
Yeah. So when you guys as a family went through that church hurt, how did it affect you specifically? Did you run to the church to find healing, or did you run away from the church?
Oh, I took off like a bandit.
Yeah.
Man, I just, I think, that could be a pretty long answer, but for the short version, I think, I said what everyone said. I love the Lord, I just don't like the church, so I'm going to do my thing for a while. And what ended up happening, I think, is music kind of became my savior.
Gotcha.
It didn't talk back, it didn't hurt me.
Wow.
It never left me. So I just kind of ran towards that. And for many years, that's kind of what I chased. Versus the church.
So I grew up in ministry as well, and certainly have suffered my share of church hurt. My dad was in ministry years ago, and probably most of the people that are here this morning and watching online have suffered some form of church hurt. How did you get over that? You and I talked about it, and you had a conversation with your grandmother I'd love for you to share about, because I think it was a pivotal moment for you in terms of overcoming that church hurt. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, at 12, 13, started, playing more music and chasing that down. And it wasn't too long after that I figured out, I got my first gig. I was like, I can get paid to do this. And so went after that really hard. And I remember one holiday in my early 20s, my grandmother approached me and just wanted to know about life and what I was doing and how it was going. And of course, she popped the question, are you going to church anywhere? I said, well, not right now, Memo. And again, it's not the Lord I have a problem with, it's just the church. And she said, honey, again, there is no perfect place, but what I would advise you do is pick a handful, go to a couple and visit, and then put it in the balance, right? Every church is going to have things you love, as far as a facility, right? And there's going to be things that maybe you don't like about it.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you just need to go. You need to be plugged in. You need to experience that. And to kind of tail off of that, obviously I took her advice and I visited around, but nothing really stuck.
Okay.
And later in life, I had another friend of mine, a pastor, who, to circle back, basically asked me the same question, but I wasn't prepared for him. And ultimately circled back to, Josh, what if I told you I was your ride or die? He's like, we've known each other a while. I was like, yeah, we're good friends, right? It's like, yeah. He said, well, what if I told you one day, man, I love you. I'll do anything for you, but your wife can kick rocks. She can move on down the road.
Right.
Don't ever bring her around me. Don't speak her name. I don't have any problem with you.
Yeah.
I love you, man. I'll do anything for you, but keep your wife away. And he said it was exactly what my relationship with Christ looks like without loving his bride, without loving his church. And
so good.
I just, in that moment, the weight of that and leaving there and then remembering the words of my grandmother years before.
Okay.
That's really, I think, what began the spark for me to start, actually looking and really taking it seriously to get plugged in, to get plugged back in.
So was it long after that you got plugged back into church? Did it take some time, or did you immediately kind of find a church, a community, and get back involved?
Truthfully, no.
Okay.
I attempted to. It wasn't for lack of effort.
Yeah.
But again, I kept turning to what was certain, and at that point in my life, it was music and my career.
Yeah.
And opportunities and chasing that down.
Right.
And I would go when I could,
Yeah.
but never really plugged in until later on.
So let's fast forward a little bit to 2013, because you suffered more trauma, suffered more hurt when your dad, who you were close to, unexpectedly passed away. So what impact did that have on you? And here's what I really want to know. How did God use that to get you back to your destiny, back to what you were made to do?
Yeah, so when my father passed away unexpectedly in 2013, he wore so many hats, y'all. He wasn't just my dad. He was my pastor.
Yeah.
He was my buddy,
Wow.
fishing partner, music,
Yeah.
confidant, just someone, mentor, if you will. He wore so many hats, so it was a huge loss. And I remember I was staying with them for a few months because we were off the road, and I was actually working at a music store in Concord when I got the call. I was 4 minutes down the road from him, and he had already gone on. But I remember standing in the yard, and I had a bottle of alcohol, and just watching these people from all seasons of life flood in, and a lot of them were church folks.
Yeah.
And people that we had not seen in a long time. And then before you knew it came the people that pretty much scattered back during the church
Yeah.
days. And I
Right.
became very angry and upset to the point that I started screaming at the Lord, just in general, and just sobbing uncontrollably. And
Wow.
I had a friend from the music store come and get me, and basically took me in the house and sat me down and heard me out. And he said, Josh, your mother needs you in there. And so I snapped out of that, and through that hurt, after I realized that there was only so much numbing that could happen, ended up kind of tightening up, and it was shortly after that, within weeks, that the Lord placed my wife back into my life. And shortly into that relationship, we were head over heels. And I remember going back on the road, and I was touring with a band. I wasn't singing, but I was playing bass, and it was an awful weekend. We were sleeping on the floor in this big home and no furniture, which was weird, but I got a call from my wife, and she said we needed to talk. At the time we were dating. So when I got back, she said, listen, I can't see you do this to yourself anymore. And not even for you. It's for a band. It's for, I support your music, but not like this, and I can't go down this road with you.
Wow.
Right? And so I was kind of faced for the first time with a real struggle of which way do I go?
Sure.
Do I stick with what's familiar,
Yeah.
what I do know, or do I take this new path
Wow.
with what I don't know, but
Yeah.
have to be vulnerable, right? And so it's not been perfect,
Yeah.
but she hasn't traded me or gotten rid of me in 10 years, so that speaks more to her than to me. But
So just to unpack that a little further, if we could, would you say that was somewhat of an Isaac moment where God was challenging you to lay something down and to trust him that there was something better? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
yeah.
Many of us probably have faced a moment like that. It was a really tough decision, critical juncture in our lives.
Yeah.
So would it be fair to say that was kind of an Isaac moment for you with music?
Absolutely. I think the short answer to that is there's no amount of baggage, whether it's this big or 12 bags loaded down like a mule.
Yeah.
You will never be able to catch the next thing that God has for you when you're carrying everything that you think you need, white knuckling, right? And so
good.
I had to place some things down.
Yeah.
I had to, and it didn't all happen at once.
Right.
But over time, I look back in hindsight and see, that it was a call to freedom.
Wow.
It was a call to destiny. It was a call to the life that he had for me.
Yeah.
And so absolutely.
And it required some faith, right, to do that.
Yeah.
Because you didn't know what was ahead. You just had to trust him.
Right.
Well, I mean, you knew you had a great woman
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
And
that was a huge part.
Yeah.
Not to place her, on some pedestal that I used to say she was my saving grace, and I got away from saying that, even though that, at the time felt
That's how you felt, yeah.
so real, so
Yeah.
tethered to that. But I had to kind of even untether from that and say, it wasn't her.
Yeah, yeah.
God used her.
Yes, that's good.
She was a tool. We're all vessels.
Right.
And even prophetic words from my father a year before he passed, asking me about who I was dating and what I was doing. And maybe you should look in a different direction. Maybe you need to find a lady that maybe she's a little older, maybe she's wiser, maybe she's been through some hurt.
Wow.
Maybe she has a child, and
Yeah.
literally 5, 6 of those things that he spoke, I saw in her.
Wow.
Yeah. Even when he was gone.
Yeah.
And so I just very much know that God was in it, that he ordained that was his path for me.
Yeah.
And like I said, it wasn't all immediate or easy, but man, I'm so thankful.
Yeah. So for years after the church hurt, you were chasing music.
Right.
You're chasing a musical career, and some stuff started happening. You got your first paying gig, and then this Isaac moment happens where you have to trust God and kind of be willing to lay that down.
Right.
Is it fair to say that music had become your God?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happened after that? Like, how did the musical career develop after that? Did you lay it down and you didn't do music for a while? Did God just kind of take you down a different path? What did all of that look like as far as your career in music?
Well, it's, to be completely honest, there have been several moments or seasons where I've laid it down or picked it back up, if anybody can relate. But as far as acknowledging, shortly after my wife and I had been dating, and right before we got married, we were attending a church an hour away. Mm-hmm. And again, just to kind of sum that up, shortly after my father passed, the legacy that he left, while it was amazing, I couldn't attend church anywhere, especially around here, without someone asking for me to help do something.
Yeah.
And no offense, but people will unintentionally hurt you as much as they will intentionally hurt you. And you have to be aware of that. And it often came for me when people wanted me for the gift and not who I was. And so I think even though at the time I didn't know that, I felt it. And so I ended up having to go to a church an hour away where no one knew me. Yeah. Only her father, and a couple of his friends. But I could just go to church.
Yeah, right.
No one asked me to play or sing or anything. And Pastor Jeremy, I believe it was 8 to 10 months that I just went to church. Mm-hmm. And I felt like God kind of put me on the bench. Yeah. And then, of course, eventually word got out, and they had asked if I would help in the praise team. And it's funny, the week I was just scheduled to play guitar, half the people got sick, somebody called out, and I ended up leading. Yeah. And I started feeling that call. Yeah. Wow. The tap on the shoulder. Yeah. And from there, chased it down, even went to Georgia, came back, served at a couple churches around this area, in and out of ministry. And like I said, a lot of this.
So let's talk about the voice.
Yeah.
It was a big deal, right?
Right.
So you audition for The Voice. You can talk about how that all comes about if you like. You audition for The Voice and end up being chosen by Reba. Right. A couple of chairs turned for you. You choose Reba. You're on Reba's team. And then we just saw the clip from the finale that aired just a few months ago, and you're named as the runner-up on The Voice. Can you just talk about that whole experience and how did that come about? Yeah. What was it like being on The Voice, and how has God used that since?
Yeah, so The Voice, I remember the question was, am I too old for this? Is this silly? Should I do something different and not go humiliate myself? I'd been on Idol 10 years prior, 2 different seasons. One of them was with Lauren Daigle, actually. But wow. I do remember asking my wife that. And of course, this is after several years of either working at a church, right, or serving at a church, but not being employed by the church, and working other jobs. But music's always found, the Lord has allowed me to supplement my income with that over the years. And so leading up to this point, right, I was doing it professionally still, but I was like, should I go? And so I asked my wife, and I'll never forget what she said, and it was so strong. She said, honey, I've always supported you in whatever you do, music, hobbies, whatever. She said, but do me one thing if you go. Go out there knowing that whatever happens, whether you make it, whether you don't, you get sent home the first day or you go all the way.
Yeah.
Know this, nothing can be taken from you. It can only be added. They cannot take your identity. They cannot take your talent. They cannot take
Good, man. Wow.
your message. They cannot take
good.
a single thing from you that you don't hand over.
Yeah.
But everything could potentially, anything that happens is only added, not taken away.
Yeah.
And every single round, right? I remember these young twins that you saw on the show, if you watched, looking at me, and they were so anxious before a round, and they looked and they said, Josh, do you ever get nervous? Are you not, freaking out right now? And I was like, I'm okay. They're like, you just look so peaceful. I was like, let me tell you about that peace.
Wow.
That I don't even understand that I have right now.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
that's just one
Yeah.
of the hundreds of opportunities being out there for months
Yeah.
to be salt and light,
Wow.
to allow the wounds
Yeah.
that I carried and
Yeah.
the scars that I still bear to heal someone else's heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I look back in hindsight and just know that, had God provided that opportunity on The Voice, to me years ago, or Idol, had things went, then I would have crashed and burned.
Wow.
I was not prepared.
Wow.
And I would even go to say this trip was not easy, and being out there and trying out and having Reba as the coach and just all the things that were exciting, and she and I are still buddies after the show. But it's just, I look back and it wasn't even about the show. It was about growing me, placing me into the next step,
Yeah.
which was a big one. But what no one knows is the only reason I even tried out was because I happened to be watching a show, and I flipped the show, and it rolled over to, I think Bodie.
Yes.
I forget the season, but it was the season finale.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
I remember just popping in, and I'm like, wait a minute, is he singing Be Late? Like,
Gratitude.
He's singing
right?
gratitude. He's
Yeah,
leading
brought the house
worship.
down. Yeah,
and
it's unreal.
on NBC, it's like, I just kept saying, that's not the Hollywood I remember 10 years ago.
Wow.
And so there was a shift I felt, and that's when I began to ask the questions, should I go? Should I try? Because
Yeah.
what no one knew and what I carried and had to keep secret was I didn't care what happened.
Yeah.
I just wanted to take and sing a gospel song
Wow.
on that show. And God gave me that desire.
Yeah,
so
talk about
strong.
that finale, the song we just saw a clip of where you and Reba are singing that song together. Did you pick that song? Did they pick that song? How'd that come about? Because, bro, that was an incredible song.
Yeah.
And that was a declaration of the gospel, really, in
Absolutely.
that song. So tell us about that, man. That
Yeah.
was so good.
Absolutely. And so I currently volunteer as a pastor at a church right down the road. And, going out there knowing that desire, I kind of had to keep that under wraps,
Yeah.
One thing I will say is having Reba as a coach, that was so intentional.
Yeah.
God did that
Yeah.
all day long because
Yeah.
there's no way I would have had, and no offense to the other coaches,
Sure.
I would have not had the freedom in my
Yeah.
faith that I had with her
Yeah.
because of our values and how we grew up. And so
Wow.
I knew when that first episode aired, even though I was having to sing these secular songs, I always had an opportunity to turn it and say, well, that's who I used to be, but
Yeah.
that's not who I am now, and this
Yeah.
is why, and all these things. And so, but even that first show, having all the coaches talking about church and pastors and what, I
Yeah.
was like, game on,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That was like, all right, Lord, that was the wink. And so we get through all the rounds, and I had a song in mind that I really thought, would be great to do.
Right.
And it ended up not happening, which I know now it was the Lord's plan, but I just felt so strongly that was the one. But when it was presented to Reba, because it's a collective effort at that point, I don't get to choose.
Yeah.
They can choose for you, but they let you have some say.
Right.
And at that point, they presented it to her, and she said, well, I don't know that one, but what about, ask him about Back to God. Her and Lauren cut it, but it was actually an original that a gentleman named Randy Houser wrote, who's a country artist, several years ago. And so Reba had the ACMs that week. So me and Asher, out of the 5 that were left, the last 5, me and Asher had to.
He's the guy that won, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Asher and I had to meet Reba in this warehouse at 1 a.m. After a show and rehearse with her.
Wow.
And we were all so tired and so burnt out, right? And we show up, I'm excited about the song, but we were trying to do it in the key that her and Lauren did it in. And she took off to the ACMs, and I went home, went to sleep, woke up the next day and was like, uh-oh. Like, this does not sound good. This is not, and my coach is not available. You know? And so I made the decision to go back and do the original key, but the only hiccup was I was gonna have to sing the chorus. And I was so worried. I stared at that email, man, to the music department for about 30 minutes and finally hit send and walked away in fear I was gonna upset Reba or the music director, and they ended up loving it. We rehearsed it the day before, and that was the first time we had rehearsed it in the new key.
Yeah.
And Reba was bragging or talking about that was such a great change to the band director, and he was like, that wasn't my choice. She said, well, who did? And pointed at me, and she said, well, look at you, producer Josh. You know? And there was so much peace in that moment. I was like, great. This is gonna be awesome declaration of the gospel. Right? I see my family. It's about 10:30 at night, and we're wrapping up after the show and a meal, and I became so sick. I'm talking, man, I've been, LA, if you want all these different cultures of food in one spot, that's the place to go. Yeah. And so I'd been eating any and everything from all these, different styles of cuisine, and I had not had a problem until the day before.
Wow. This is a day before the finale.
That is
right?
the day. That is correct. The day before the finale.
Not a great time to get sick.
No, and I just remember, the set going, oh my gosh, I can't throw up on Reba, Yeah. And so, what I didn't know, they said, Josh, is there anything on stage that you would? I said, I want a barn and a cross. Barn and a cross, and I just felt that desire in my belly, right? Yeah. Amongst other things, and so, yeah. And so we walk out there, and literally they had grass. Those were real olive trees, guys, that I didn't ask for. They gave me the barn and the cross, but they added the church. Yeah. And if you look back on the video, you'll literally see there's smoldering and fire behind that barn. And guys, I could not have asked or planned this any better, but while we were singing that song, I could see the symbolism that we were standing in the garden. We were standing in God's original plan. Wow, wow. And the only way back to the original plan, this world on fire, was through the cross. Yeah, yeah. Woo! And not only through the cross,
so good, man,
but the church as well.
So good, golly.
And, we got through it. I didn't get sick on stage, but I look back and I'm like, man, that was a spiritual attack. Yeah. It wasn't food poisoning.
Yeah, man.
That was such a big moment. And I just remember weeping after, and Reba, she said, honey, it's all right. They're smiling. I said, that's not it. Yeah. She said, what is it? I said, we did it. She said, we did what? I said, well, we didn't. God did it. He just let us help. And I continued to explain. I said, I've been keeping this secret this whole season. I just wanted to sing a gospel song with you. And we just did it in front of 12.8 million people on NBC. And it's forever marked. It's forever recorded.
Man, and I've got a couple more questions.
Yes, sir.
We're going to run out of time, but I want to talk about Leland. Because you and your wife lost a son. I want you to just, for a moment, talk about that. There's people here who have suffered just unimaginable loss and things that are just unfair.
Right.
But how did God carry you guys through that dark season?
Yeah. Well, just like, when I lost my father, hit to the gut, met my wife, got married, started having children, we had a desire to have a son.
Yeah.
And, we kept getting girls, and we're so thankful for our girls. And if you noticed earlier, I said I have 5 kids. We have 4 at home. Leland, our son, was born at 23.5 weeks. Her water had broke on week 19, and the doctors were pretty avid about what they wanted us to do, and we said, no, we don't play for that team.
Yeah.
And as long as he's got a heartbeat, and Mama's okay, we're gonna give him a shot. So we did, and he lasted for over a month with little to no fluid. And the long and short of that, folks, is he was born and passed away on my birthday in 2020, right before COVID hit. Hardest thing I've ever been through.
Sure.
To have your son born, he's in your hand, I can see his heartbeat. And I'm all but screaming at the team to do something.
Right.
No, and they're like, just spend what time you have with him.
Wow.
And so, again, guys, the pain has purpose, I guess is the best way I can put that. There's purpose in the pain.
Yeah.
You just ask him to reveal it and get you through. Again, just like losing my dad, these are marks in my life. These are huge moments of not just loss, but decisions.
Yeah.
And how to respond versus reacting.
Yes. Yeah.
It's
Boy,
huge.
that's good. It's huge. Yeah.
And so I've looked back in hindsight, and I've not always got it right. Probably get it wrong more than I get it right.
Yeah.
But I've allowed the world to see, and I feel like the Lord has told me, you know what, Josh? I created you. I don't just love you. I like you.
Yeah.
Just spend time with me. We'll do it together.
Yeah.
When you fall, get back up, and I'll use that.
Wow.
Stop trying to hide what I want to use. It's Satan's so good at that.
Yes.
Telling us to keep it in the dark. Don't tell anybody.
Right.
And God's like, no, let's put a spotlight on that thing so he can't use it in the dark anymore.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
And that's what he's done my entire life through pain, through addiction, through loss.
Yeah.
All these things, the up and down of life.
Yeah.
I look back, and I think that's why David is so important. That the man after God's own heart. A lot of people speculate, but it's because he never ran.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He did all those things, and he immediately, get the band, y'all, we're going to write some songs. I'm sorry again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's been my mission.
Wow.
To stop trying to work from a place of obtaining it or looking for it or expecting a church to give what only he can give me.
Whew. Come on, say that, man. That's
and
good.
just use the mess.
Yeah.
Just use the mess.
Yeah.
Stop trying to throw away what I want to recycle. It's like I keep hearing all these things that he wants me to do.
Wow.
But I've got to let him do it.
Yeah.
Put down the bag, stop white knuckling so that I can catch the next thing that he has for me.
Wow.
And that's what brought me to The Voice. That's what brought me here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Had my father not passed, listen, purpose in the pain, had my daddy not died, I'd be at his church right now and not here.
Wow.
Because you support your family.
Yeah.
We always went to church where daddy went to church, right?
Yeah.
It was the first time I had to go, what do I believe? What do I want to do with my life?
Yeah.
Everything has a purpose, y'all.
Yeah.
And if you'll give it to him, he'll make something beautiful out of it.
Isn't that good, church? That's powerful. So good.